We're looking at Nigeria's trade sector, the trade policy. This report I did show you at the beginning of the program. It was handed to us last week by the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. I also think perhaps I will get an official from the ministry to come speak to me about, some of those things that they're doing at the ministry, especially this report, because I was told that this report will be an annual one. But let's take a look at the trade sector dispassionately, independently, away from what the government is also telling us. Olufemi Boyede is here. He's a certified international trade professional. He's also the chief executive officer at Koinonia. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Yes, I did.
By Nigerian pronunciation.
What does that mean?
It's actually Koinonia.
Koinonia.
It's Greek.
Okay, it's Greek. Koinonia.
Yeah, Koinonia.
But K-O-I?
K-O-I.
Koinonia. So are you telling me I'm a local person? I'm a local lady? What do you mean? But I'm proud. Yes. I'm proud to be Nigerian. So it was pronounced. I Nigerianized it. Let's put it that way. But many thanks for joining us on the show. Let me start.
Thank you.
You've seen this, or you've heard about it? Nigerian Annual Trade Policy Report, NATPO. You did hear about it?
Yes, I have a soft copy of that.
Okay, good. So tell me what your feelings are, your sentiments are towards this, because you are one person that has also walked through the corridors of the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. You won't deny that. I think during Minister Ganga's days, isn't it? Yes, I'll tell our viewers so that they will know. It's not so long ago. So talk to me about your sentiments about this.
Well, I will try as much as possible to be unsentimental. And my objective feeling is actually a thumbs up for the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment team. First and foremost for the creation of that office itself, and for the fact that in so short a time they have come around with something that not just you and I, but the whole world can hold in the hands and discuss constructively about Nigeria's trade sector. I think it is thumbs up, really. And being the first one, I have gone through it, and it does look as if it is rich enough for us to give us hope as a nation.
Okay.
That, okay, maybe finally we are starting on the right path.
What is this report about? Since you said you've gone through it, what is it really about? What does it say? For someone like a foreign investor or someone takes a look at it, what does it really say about Nigeria? What does it say?
I don't want to enter into your mind to start saying maybe you are looking at it from the wrong perspective, but I think it is not the document that an investor wishing to come and invest in Nigeria will take. That he wouldn't contact this. What I mean is that's not the first thing that he will be looking for. He will be looking for a compendium of investment, industrial, agricultural incentives in Nigeria.
Which he will go to NIPC.
Well, I think NIPC at some point was working on harnessing, compiling something that comprehensive. I don't know if they have finished yet. But this contains enough information about Nigeria's trade relationships, investment relationships, policies, talks about the treaties that we have signed, why we have signed them, talks about the ones that we are negotiating. Actually, that's what that office is focusing on. And I think that in so short a time they could have collaborated with the National Bureau of Statistics to actually give us figure-based, statistics-based information. I think we should clap for them.
Okay, so now we do have a Nigerian Office for Trade Negotiations, isn't it? Yeah, headed by, I think, Ambassador Osakwe.
Yeah, I think he's...
Yes, he's the one, Ambassador Osakwe. Yes, I think that's his,
Osakwe.
Yes, that's his name, if I'm not mistaken. He's the head of, he's the Nigerian Chief Trade Negotiator. So he's the Director General of Nigerian Office for Trade Negotiations. That's Ambassador Chiedu Osakwe. I think I should try and get him on the show to talk about this. So you say thumbs up for industry, trade and investment?
Yes, I do say that.
Okay.
I'm not saying that they have reached the El Dorado, the destination, but they have started well. So it's just a matter of now. And I can tell you some of the outcomes of this which are not in the newspapers or which you don't know about. I think that I'm beginning to see a move, a tangible move. Every time we talk about trade, we talk about investment, we talk about industry, we usually talk about lobby groups, pressure groups, groups of experts, and what have you. And I have seen emerge in Nigeria now, not because of this, it's not because this was published, but now there is a Nigerian trade experts group, for example. There is a Nigerian non-oil export expert group and what have you, who take documents like this and do a very thorough critique. And that means that as long as government is ready to bring in the opinions and comments that these kinds of people that they come up with, to bring it into continuous amelioration. You know, it's dynamic, so you are supposed to continue to improve on what you have achieved. There is never any limit to excellence. As long as that happens, I see finally light at the end of the tunnel.
The last time you came here, you were so distraught.
I still am.
Oh, okay. Even with
even with what I have read,
even with the
I'm only saying
that,
yes, I'm only saying that we are now on the road. That does not mean. Last time we came here, I remember that we're supposed to be talking about how Nigeria has improved in the ranking of ease of doing business. But I remember bringing our viewers back to the reality of the fact that we had actually dropped in ranking between where we were supposed to be, having achieved 121 in 2009 and aiming to be top 20 in 2020, and now in 2017 we are 145 and celebrating. What they were celebrating was that we dropped from 168 or 169 to 145, forgetting that we were actually 121. The same thing here. Now the report that we have now from the quarter, I think you read it out a while ago on the screen.
From MBS.
We're talking about exports outgrowing imports. Fine. It looks so big.
But exports is
finally
still,
what did we export?
About 26%.
What did we export? Nigeria records 15.6 trillion naira of exports in 2017, and 15.3 of this is actually accounted for by crude oil.
By crude oil.
Are we not still at the same point that you and I have been talking about 20 years ago? So why are we celebrating? Why do we just pick the headline, Nigeria's exports have outgrown imports? The reason why Nigeria's exports outgrew
in percentage terms,
is not because we did
26
anything.
to 8.5%.
It has nothing to do with any expertise or any special Midas touch from Nigeria. The world price of oil grew. It shot beyond. Nigeria didn't force the world price of crude oil to grow. So these are things that happen with or without our involvement. So we should always be careful, and that's where I see a program like yours being perennially, continually relevant, because then you can bring people down to earth and let us face the reality rather than just not float.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about exports. Exports have grown. We're recording about 232 billion naira worth of exports, and then we're happy. Yes, we should be happy, because at least it shows that we're growing. But in 2015, non-oil exports was 1.13 trillion. Have we forgotten that in 2015 we did non-oil exports 1.13 trillion? Why are we now celebrating?
So perhaps we should also celebrate. Perhaps we should also celebrate because Nigeria is exiting or has exited out of recession after 5 consecutive quarters of contraction. we did come out of a recession in the second quarter of 2017. So perhaps we should celebrate because the economy was recessed. The economy was, should I say intensive care units? It was in the ICU. Yes, the economy was in the ICU. And now it's stable, it's out of the ICU, it's in the ward, they are giving it. I hope people understand what
Nancy,
I'm saying. So perhaps we should try to celebrate that.
I traveled by road
recessed.
from Ado-Ekiti to Abuja on Sunday.
Ado-Ekiti, that's Ekiti State?
Yes. It's relevant because that's the main road now that links Lagos to Abuja. If you want to enjoy it, you don't go through Ibilo and Akure. You
because
go
through
Ado-Ekiti.
Yeah.
But from Kaba, for example, to Omuo, Kaba, the last border, almost the last border town to between Kogi and Ekiti, which should take about 21 minutes, took about 1 hour 40 minutes because of the road. Road is part of trade infrastructure.
Yeah.
So when we have production, massive production in northern Nigeria or in southern Nigeria that needs to go the other direction, you can see already that we are not growing. Oh yes, it's good that we're out of recession. Are our physical infrastructures in support of trade and industries, are they out of recession? Are they out of dilapidation? Are our warehouses now being reclaimed by industries from the churches that have turned them into worship grounds? Are our manufacturers employing more hands now? Are the banks employing more, or are they actually retrenching more? These are the questions that I think are relevant to the average Nigerian when we talk about recession. So it's always important, and that's again why I need to come back to your program, why it is important. Yes, while the technocrats and the experts and the statisticians and economic engineers can always float the figures and let the work clap for us, we need also to have what do you call yourselves now, ombudsmen, who say, look, let's talk the reality. Okay, we don't tell them finish, say we don't come out from recession. How much food is on the table? What is the purchasing power of the average Nigerian?
Of course, our per capita income has decreased, just
So
like IMF
what
said.
we're
Even
talking
though
about?
that we're out of recession, if you take a look, if you just oppose Nigeria and some other African countries, we're doing very, very badly. Now, you also brought me, you said something very vital, just taking an example of road. Road is a trade infrastructure. And immediately I just went to Yemi Kale, who is the NBS chief statistician general. And looking at the foreign trade statistics, and he said trade, that's what the NBS released, trade by mode of transport. And let me put it in Naira, because road is a trade, and not road, maritime, water, they are all trade infrastructure.
Yeah.
And the amounts that Nigeria got from these infrastructure, maritime generated about 3.8 billion, rail, 0. Road, 11.6 billion, domestic, that's talking about domestic export now. 11.6 billion, air, 2.05 billion naira, mail, 0, inland waterways, 0, other transport, 0. So road is leading, after road is maritime. I've got to discuss maritime sometime on the show also.
You've also got to discuss rail.
Yes.
Because
rail here is 0. So
please,
the rail infrastructure.
Tell me again, how much did the road generate?
11.64 billion naira.
Okay, I don't want to go into the politics of how much is spent in Nigeria to tar 1 kilometer of road. But if you remember, it's somewhere in the region of 1 billion or thereabout, depending on which state is spending the money. So are you telling me that road revenue from road was enough to tar 11 kilometers of road in Nigeria? Does that mean that we are ready? But let's leave road aside. In the advanced economies, the real trade support infrastructure is waterways and rail. And if you take, for example, the most functional rail linkage system right now is the Abuja-Kaduna. That's I opted to go there last week when I was the guest speaker at the Kaduna International Trade Fair business seminar, I opted to go by rail.
By rail or road?
By rail.
Okay.
From Abuja to Kaduna.
How long
and it
did
was
it take
quite
you?
good. No, quite okay as far as time is concerned. 2 hours from Idu to Rigasa.
Okay.
But then I looked at the number of coaches. There are probably about 12 in all, including 2 first class. Is that actually the highest that we can get?
How much did you pay? I'm sorry.
3,000 naira. I think 2,900 for first class.
Okay.
It's much lower for the other class. But for now, still okay. Except that we are not making economic sense out of the operation of that state. I'm just looking at what could be in comparison with what is. In the whole of that service, there is one young girl with 1 thermocol of Fanta and Coke.
In the whole of the train?
In the whole of the train, walking from one, well, I had to address urgently. I felt in my body system that my blood sugar level had dropped. So I had to look for, and I had asked them earlier on, is there a bar on this train? And they said, oh, yes. Isn't that an economic opportunity? Who are the managers of the Abuja-Kaduna rail system? How many people are they transporting per day?
So, like, how many of you were in the train? Do you have a rough idea?
I would say that it was like 40% occupancy.
So, like, how many? Was it up to like 100?
Oh no, I only know about my coach. And in the coach I was in, we were definitely less than 100.
Okay, but you were up to like 20?
Oh no, maybe about 50.
Why I'm asking is to buttress also what you're saying, the economic sense. So it's not just also building infrastructure. You must harness the value chain of whatsoever thing you're putting into.
Yes, that's the word, harnessing.
The value chain,
harnessing. That's the reason why we remain a country with high potential that refuses to harness that potential. Let me quickly bring us back again to what you asked me to come and join you to discuss. That's trade and how far we are moving. We still are just at the tip of the iceberg. It's a great thing that we have statistics to work with. But what is the volume of trade between Ilela and Niamey?
That's the Niger
border.
And, yes.
Shaki, Seme, Idiroko, Ogoja.
Yeah, borders.
Who is capturing the trade activities taking place in this place?
Who should capture? Whose responsibility is that?
I will believe that it is still the NBS.
I'm not speaking for Dr. Kale, but they're also not as staffed as.
They're not as staffed.
Yeah, and they don't have so much money. Just like every other agency in Nigeria.
There is no agency in Nigeria that will tell you
money.
that it is well funded.
Yeah.
Everyone is looking for funds, so I don't want to go there at all.
Is that something
what I'm trying to say
can do?
What I'm trying to say in essence is that it's not just having the
or even customs. And I'm
just
taking a look
it's
at
not
the total
structure to capture the data that I'm talking about.
Okay.
I'm talking about how to get the traders themselves to agree to come into the net.
Okay.
Because there are so many other discouraging factors. Even those who are willing to come into the formal network, they look at it. Trade is all about turnaround cycle. From farm gate to proceeds, how long does it take me? So if there are established structures, sometimes they are actually informal structures that speed up the transaction cycle. Like, for example, an exporter who decides to go to the export desk of Nigeria Customs Service to pay 500 naira. It's as cheap as that, too. 500 naira per container. So that all the papers are just passed, and it goes on that particular ship. They would do that. Not because they want to avoid paying less, but going through the NES is the bureaucratic process. So there are some very tiny issues that we need to look at, and those are the areas where I think the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment has a lot of work to do.
Do you think that we've done well at all, apart from what you said concerning this report? Do you think that there is anywhere in our trade sector, in our trade policy, that we've done well? Because I do know that the economy is not just anchored on fiscal policy and monetary policy. Fiscal policy, Adeosu is sorting that side. Monetary policy, Emefiele and his team on CBN sorting that side. But I also know the importance of trade policy. Trade also that will also drive investment. So we're talking about what also is the investment policy of Nigeria. So it has to be anchored on these 4 pillars.
So you are coming back to what I said now, that we need to have a compendium.
Yes.
But it's not just a compendium as in a book. We also need to have collaboration, the kind of synergy that does not isolate fiscal policy from monetary policy, from trade policy.
So
if we have that, if there is collaboration, we won't be having policy reversals by the Central Bank of Nigeria.
That may affect...
they've already, so there will be consultation. And when we talked, I think in Kaduna, I was talking about making Nigeria's export products more competitive. It was all about competitiveness. And for me, it was the money value of competitiveness is just a component. The very tiny intangible issues are the greater part of it. And that is where the issue of synergy among trade and investment support institutions in Nigeria must be activated. Maybe now, if you see 2 agencies collaborating, maybe the ministers are personal friends. It's not necessarily, oh yes, you mentioned here, yes, I was special advisor to a minister. Well, I have been special advisor 3 times.
3 times.
To previous ministers. I'm not a...
Aganga, who else?
Idris Waziri.
Okay.
Charles Ugu.
That's why I said you walk through the corridors of that Ministry of Trade and Investment.
Yes.
But have there been anything that we've done well over the years?
No, you cannot. The terrain is massive. The terrain is full of difficulties. So you cannot, under any guise, sentiment or anyhow, condemn the effort of any Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment. What I think I could quickly, it just came in, so let me say that, what I think I could quickly encourage is the penchant for continuation. I want to use continuation rather than continuity. The penchant for continuation has to be there. For example, I was also advisor to Modibo, Aliu Modibo, who was in that ministry for about 5.5 months before he became FCT minister. And under Aliu Modibo, we developed the concept of Commerce 44. Commerce 44 was simply 11 agricultural products, 11 manufactured products, 11 mineral products to 11 destinations. So Commerce 44. And it was making so much wave, and we were on such a good path that it only needed the next person coming to continue. Commerce 44 is somewhere now. I don't know. Then, thank God for this administration. When they came in, I was also, with all due respect, and I thank God, I was a part of the team that developed the National Industrial Revolution Plan, which this administration said they were going to follow.
Continue.
National Industrial Revolution Plan doesn't need to have anybody's name. Not Adesina, not Aganga, not anybody. It is national. And you could have picked 1 or 2 parts of it and just continue. I see quite a lot. The Industrial Training Fund, ITF, actually under that past administration, of which, thank God, I was a servant, there was also the National Industrial Skills Development Program. But till today, even members of the current administration who want to have well-finished houses, they still go to Togo to import the tilers. They go to Ghana to import the furniture and the cabinet makers and what have you. what happened to National Industrial Skills Development Program. And if you look at the Nigeria Trade Experts Group that I'm talking about, I mean, I've been reading, I've been really enriching my knowledge. We have so many of them, including retired Customs Controllers General, who are a bunch, working bunch of knowledge and resources that this country can actually harness. I agree with you on that word. But we're not. Nobody is harnessing nothing.
So where are we missing it? Where is the missing link? I know in the midst of this discussion, you've thrown out solutions, you've thrown out what we've not been doing well, what we should begin to do. But of paramount importance now, how do we realize our trade potentials? Because, you know, we want to be one of the biggest economies. We are the biggest economy in Africa. One of the biggest economies in the world. We are not growing as much as we should grow. Vision 2020, FSS 2020, double-digit growth. We are still struggling now with a 1%, close to 2% growth for a year. We have major trading partners, India, China, and all of that. How should we rebalance this? Is there a way for rebalancing? Is there a place we can actually rebalance? And can we actually also rebalance coming out of recession? Is this the best time to think when someone is starving, when the person is hungry? You're telling to the person, just be innovative. Try as much as possible to be creative and look for where you can get food. But the person needs food. I'm just using that as an analogy.
Yes, yes.
How many questions have I asked you now? So I've asked you 3 questions. So try and do justice to it in 2 minutes, because we have to end the show.
Jesus Christ. Nancy, the trade industry and investment sector continues to offer Nigeria the hope that Nigeria requires. I think the ministry, as of this moment, is doing well. I think they should go deep. I'm introducing the concept of deep rather than wide. I think for those areas that they have actually plugged in and are achieving results, I think they should deepen it.
So don't chase many things. Just find one thing and do it well. Find one thing and do it.
If you take industry, for example, we say that Nigeria's manufactured exports have grown, and we are celebrating. What is the possibility? Where are we? Where can we be? Where do we have the potential to be? What do we need to do to get there? And one of the things, I will keep saying this, is actually interagency collaboration on the one part, is also on the other part, public-private partnership. I still see a lot of policies being churned out without consultation with the private sector, or without enough consultation with the private sector. Now Nigeria is on the Continental Free Trade Agreement. That's one of the ongoing negotiations. And part of what I'm hearing from private sector is that their involvement, even in the negotiation process, is so infinitesimal that I think, well, EPA is a good example. If you continue to read this report, the biggest trading partner, especially in non-oil, remains Europe. But it is Europe that we are having a stalemate with
EPA. That's another discussion. So in fact, I had that discussion like last year, 2 years ago, the EPA. I even saw a mail they sent me last week, from the European Union.
And before I close, please let me say this. Non-oil exports, which is my dream and passion for this country, we should be careful to stop celebrating that it is growing now. It was 1.1 trillion naira up to 2015 because the export expansion grant was being administered well.
But now it's not up to that.
Even now, the new guidelines have reduced the grant by half, and yet nobody has gotten it yet. So I'm hoping that the NEPC, which is the secretariat, is watching you and will do something as quickly as possible to actually ensure that there's export support in Nigeria.
I hope NEPC is watching. Segun Awolowo has just been reappointed. Congrats to you, Mr. Awolowo. Let's see how that goes. We may definitely get you on the show sometime again to talk about it.